The moment Dominic Caruso walked into that five-star hotel with his new fiancée, he had one goal: prove he'd moved on. Then he saw her name tag: Isabel Chen, his ex-wife, the woman he'd let walk away 5 years ago because he was too broken to fight for her. She was the guest relations manager. He was the VIP with a diamond ring on another woman's finger. And for the next 48 hours, they'd be trapped in the same building, pretending to be strangers while everything they'd buried came screaming back to life. If you're hooked in and you're ready to enjoy this story, click subscribe and let me know in the comments where you're watching from, because tomorrow I will be giving you another story just as interesting as this one, and you don't want to miss it. Now back to the story. Dominic Caruso had stopped counting the years since he'd felt anything real. 52 years old, silver threading through his dark hair, a body still hard from discipline and danger. He stood before the floor-to-ceiling windows of his Manhattan penthouse and adjusted his Brioni suit jacket with the practiced ease of a man who'd learned to wear armor every day. Below him, the city glittered with 1,000 lies and twice as many secrets, most of which he'd either created or buried. "Dom, do I look okay?" Vanessa's voice floated from the bedroom, bright and expectant. He turned. 28, blonde, beautiful in that carefully constructed way that spoke of personal trainers and dermatologists rather than genetics. She wore a cream-colored dress that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent, and she smiled at him with the uncomplicated affection of someone who believed she'd won the lottery. Maybe she had. Dominic Caruso was worth millions legitimately now, or close enough that the IRS had stopped circling. 3 hotels, 2 restaurants, a construction company that actually constructed things instead of laundering money. He'd walked away from the life 5 years ago, paid his debts in blood and cash, and emerged on the other side as something almost respectable. Almost. "You look perfect," he said, and meant it in the way one might compliment a well-executed painting. Beautiful. Lifeless. Vanessa beamed and crossed to him, her heels clicking on marble. She pressed against him, smelling of expensive perfume, something French and floral that he could never quite remember the name of. "I still can't believe we're spending the weekend at the Azure. I've been dying to stay there since it opened." The Azure, 5-star luxury in the heart of Midtown, the kind of place where senators and CEOs and men like him went to feel above the world for a few nights. He'd booked the penthouse suite, ordered champagne, made reservations at the rooftop restaurant where you needed to know someone just to get a table. All of it designed to prove something he wasn't sure he believed. "Only the best for my fiancée," he said, and the words still felt foreign in his mouth, like a language he was learning phonetically without understanding the grammar. She kissed his cheek, leaving a lipstick mark she immediately wiped away with her thumb. 3 months until the wedding. Can you believe it? No, he thought. But he smiled and told her he couldn't wait. Across town, in a staff break room that smelled of burnt coffee and industrial cleaning solution, Isabel Chen stood in front of a mirror and adjusted her name tag. Isabel Chen, guest relations manager. Not Isabel Caruso. Not anymore. She'd taken back her maiden name the day the divorce was finalized, reclaiming the identity she'd traded for love at 23. That was 16 years ago. 16 years of being his wife, his partner, his conscience, until she couldn't be anymore. She smoothed down the burgundy blazer of her uniform, checking for lint that wasn't there. 39 years old, petite, with dark hair she wore in a neat bun and eyes that had learned to hide too much. She looked at her reflection and practiced the smile. Professional, warm, unthreatening. The smile of someone who existed to solve other people's problems while quietly managing her own. "Belle, you're on VIP duty tonight," her manager called through the break room door. "Big spender checking in. Penthouse suite. Pull out all the stops." "Got it," she called back, her voice steady even as something in her chest tightened. VIP duty meant hovering, meant anticipating needs, meant being invisible except when needed. She was good at it, better than good. In the 3 years since she'd started at the Azure, She'd worked her way from front desk associate to guest relations manager through sheer competence and the kind of quiet determination that came from having lost everything once and refusing to let it happen again. The divorce had taken the apartment, the car, the friends who'd really been his friends all along. It had taken her sense of who she was. For 2 years after, she'd lived in a studio in Queens, worked 3 jobs, and cried herself to sleep wondering if she'd made a mistake. But she'd survived, rebuilt, found purpose in small kindnesses, a family's vacation made perfect, a business traveler's stress eased, an anniversary remembered. She'd made peace with her choices, or so she told herself every single day. Isabel left the break room and took her position in the lobby, tablet in hand, ready to greet the evening's arrivals. The Azure's lobby was a masterpiece of modern luxury. White marble, gold accents, a chandelier that looked like falling stars frozen in crystal. Classical music played softly beneath the murmur of wealthy voices. She belonged here now, in this space between elegance and service, visible enough to help, but invisible enough not to intrude. At 7:47 p.m., the revolving door spun, and Dominic Caruso walked into her life again. She saw the car first, a black Mercedes, sleek and expensive, pulling up to the entrance. Then the man stepping out, moving with that particular grace that came from being comfortable with violence. Tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a suit that probably cost more than her monthly salary. Her heart recognized him before her mind did, stopping and then starting again too fast. No, but yes, Dominic. Her Dominic. Except he wasn't hers anymore, hadn't been for years, and there was a woman with him now, blonde and young, and laughing at something he'd said. Isabel's fingers tightened on her tablet. Professional. She could be professional. The lobby was large. Maybe he wouldn't see her. Maybe. His eyes swept the space and landed on her like a physical blow. For one impossible second, the world stopped. The music faded. The other guests dissolved. There was only the 2 of them, frozen across 20 feet of marble floor, staring at each other with the weight of everything unsaid hanging in the air between them. His face went pale beneath his tan. His jaw clenched. She forgot how to breathe. Then the blonde woman, his fiancée, she must be his fiancée, tugged his arm, and the spell broke. Isabel's professional smile snapped into place like a mask. She forced her legs to move, crossing the lobby with her tablet held like a shield. "Good evening, and welcome to the Azure," she said, her voice steady even though her hands were shaking. "You must be Mr. Caruso. We're honored to have you with us. What would you do if you came face to face with the one person you thought you'd never see again? Drop your thoughts below." Dominic's hand trembled as he reached for the pen. It was such a small thing, a gold-plated ballpoint offered by the front desk clerk, but his fingers wouldn't steady. He was Dominic Caruso, a man who'd stared down rivals with guns, who'd made decisions that cost lives, who'd rebuilt an empire from legitimate concrete and steel. He didn't tremble. But Isabel was standing 3 feet away, wearing a hotel uniform and a name tag that said Chun instead of Caruso, and his entire carefully constructed world was collapsing. "Just need your signature here, Mr. Caruso," the desk clerk said, sliding the registration form across the marble counter. He signed. The pen scratched. Somewhere to his left, Vanessa was talking, something about the chandelier, about her Instagram, about champagne, but her voice sounded like it was coming from underwater. Isabel stood beside the desk clerk, tablet held precisely at chest height, her posture perfect, her face professionally pleasant. Only her eyes betrayed her, and only because he knew how to read them. Had spent 12 years learning every flicker, every shadow, every unspoken emotion that crossed those dark depths. Right now they were screaming. "We've prepared the penthouse suite per your specifications," Isabel said, and her voice was so controlled it hurt to hear. "California king bed, fully stocked bar, and we've included a bottle of Dom Perignon 2008 with our compliments. Your dinner reservation at Celestial is confirmed for 9 o'clock. She was looking at Vanessa now, not him. Protecting herself. He recognized the tactic. She'd used it during their worst fights, those last months, when every conversation had been a minefield and she'd learned to look anywhere but directly at him. "Oh my God, Dom, this is amazing," Vanessa gushed, squeezing his arm. She turned to Isabel with the casual dismissiveness of someone who'd never had to work service. "Is the suite the one with the terrace? I saw it on their website, and it's like to die for." "Yes, ma'am," Isabel replied, and something in Dominic's chest cracked at hearing her call another woman ma'am in that context. "The terrace offers a 180-degree view of the Manhattan skyline. The sunset view is particularly stunning." She would know. They'd watched sunsets together once, from the balcony of their apartment in Tribeca, back when she'd been his wife and he'd been trying to convince himself he could be both the man she needed and the man his world demanded. He'd failed. "Is there anything else you require for your stay?" Isabel asked, still not looking at him. "Actually, yes." Vanessa's voice carried that entitled edge he'd learned to ignore. "I need a hair appointment tomorrow at 2. Can you arrange that? Somewhere upscale, not just any salon." "Of course. I'll have our concierge book you at Frederick Fekkai. They're the best in the city." "Perfect." Vanessa finally released Dominic's arm and turned to examine the lobby, pulling out her phone to take photos, which left Dominic and Isabel alone in a crowd of strangers. Their eyes met. The world stopped again. 5 years. 5 years since he'd seen her face, heard her voice, stood close enough to catch the faint scent of her perfume. Something subtle and clean, jasmine and sandalwood, the same one she'd worn since college because she said expensive didn't always mean better. 5 years since she'd packed 2 suitcases, left her wedding ring on the kitchen counter, and walked out of his life with tears streaming down her face and words that still haunted him. "I can't save you from yourself, Dom. And I can't watch you destroy the man I fell in love with." "Belle!" His voice came out rough, barely above a whisper. "It's Isabel," she corrected softly, and the formality was a knife between his ribs. "Is there anything else you need, Mr. Caruso?" "You," he thought. "I need you. I needed you 5 years ago, and every day since." But Vanessa was turning back, and Isabel's eyes were already shuddering, and the moment was dissolving like smoke. "No," he managed. "Thank you." Isabel nodded once, professionally, and gestured to a bellhop. "Thomas will escort you to your suite. Please don't hesitate to call guest relations if you need anything during your stay. We're here to ensure your weekend is perfect." Perfect. The word mocked him. She turned to walk away, her heels clicking on marble, her posture rigid with the kind of control that only came from barely holding yourself together. Dominic watched her go, memorizing the line of her shoulders, the way she still tucked a strand of hair behind her left ear when she was stressed, even though her hair was pinned up, the particular grace in her walk that no uniform could diminish. She'd been a queen once in his world, respected, feared, loved. People had known better than to cross Dominic Caruso's wife. She'd stood beside him at dinners with made men, had learned to smile through danger, had been his partner in everything. Now she was directing guests to the bathroom and booking salon appointments for his fiancée. What had he done? "Dom? You coming?" Vanessa was already at the elevator, impatient. He forced his legs to move, to carry him away from the ghost of his past and toward the future he'd chosen. Or the future that had chosen him because he'd been too much of a coward to fight for what he really wanted. As the elevator doors closed, he caught one last glimpse of Isabel across the lobby. She was standing with her back to him, her hand pressed against the concierge's desk like she needed it for support, her head bowed. And then she was gone, and he was rising toward the penthouse with a woman who didn't know him, had never really known him, and probably never would. In the back office, Isabel locked the door and let herself break. Her hands shook as she gripped the desk edge. Her breathing came in sharp, painful gasps. Tears she'd held back for 5 years burned behind her eyes, demanding release. Dominic, here, in her hotel, with someone else. Someone young and beautiful and completely, utterly wrong for him. But what did it matter? She'd given up the right to have opinions about who belonged with Dominic Caruso when she'd signed the divorce papers, when she'd chosen her conscience over her heart, when she'd walked away from the only man she'd ever loved because loving him was killing them both. She'd told herself she'd done the right thing, that leaving him was an act of love, a desperate attempt to shock him into changing before the violence of his world consumed what was left of his soul. But seeing him now, still alive, still powerful, still him, with another woman wearing the ring that should have been hers, felt like dying all over again. A knock on the door made her straighten, swipe at her eyes, force the mask back into place. "Belle? You okay in there?" Her assistant manager, concerned, professional. "Fine," she called back, and her voice didn't shake. "Just checking the VIP preferences. I'll be out in a minute." She looked at herself in the small mirror on the wall. Red-rimmed eyes, smudged mascara, the face of a woman who'd just had her heart broken for the second time by the same man. She fixed her makeup with practiced efficiency, straightened her blazer, and rebuilt herself piece by piece. Then Isabel Chin, not Caruso, never Caruso again, unlocked the door and returned to work. Because that's what survivors did. They kept going, even when the past walked back into their lives wearing an expensive suit and looking at them like they were the one who got away. Dominic didn't sleep. The penthouse suite was obscene in its luxury, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Central Park, a marble bathroom larger than most apartments, a king bed with Egyptian cotton sheets that probably cost more than Isabel made in a month. Vanessa had squealed with delight, immediately popping the champagne and posting photos to her Instagram with captions about living my best life and so blessed. He'd smiled, nodded, pretended. Now, at 2 a.m., he stood on the terrace in his undershirt and slacks, smoking a cigarette he'd bummed from the night doorman, a habit he'd quit 3 years ago but suddenly needed again. The city sprawled below him, indifferent to his crisis, and all he could see was Isabel's face in that lobby. The control in her expression, the pain in her eyes, the way she'd called him Mr. Caruso like they were strangers. They'd built a life together, survived his father's murder, the power struggles that followed, the nights he came home with blood on his hands, and she cleaned him up without asking questions because she knew he couldn't answer them. She'd been his conscience, his anchor, the only person who'd ever made him want to be better. And he'd let her walk away because some part of him had believed she was right, that he was poison, that loving him would destroy her, that she deserved better than a man who solved problems with violence. "Dom, come back to bed." Vanessa's voice drifted from inside, sleepy and annoyed. He crushed out the cigarette and went inside, sliding into bed beside her warmth and feeling nothing but the cold. 3 floors below, Isabel stood in the hotel's executive kitchen at 6 a.m., personally overseeing the preparation of breakfast for the penthouse suite. "I can handle this, Belle," the head chef said, confused. "You don't need to be here." "VIP guest," she replied tersely, checking the presentation of sliced fruit with an intensity that had nothing to do with professionalism and everything to do with control. "I want everything perfect." What she meant was, "I need to keep moving or I'll fall apart." She'd requested reassignment, sent an email to her manager at 4 a.m. claiming a conflict of interest, a former acquaintance. She'd called Dominic, as if 12 years of marriage could be reduced to acquaintance. But it was Saturday, and her manager wouldn't see the email until Monday, and she had 2 more days of this nightmare to survive. 2 days of seeing him, of maintaining her professional mask, of watching him with her. The breakfast cart was ready. Fresh pastries from the hotel's French bakery, seasonal fruit, Greek yogurt, organic coffee, fresh squeezed orange juice. She'd included extra dark roast because Dominic had always taken his coffee black and strong, then immediately hated herself for remembering. "I'll take it up," she told the room service attendant. "Belle, that's not your job." I said, "I'll take it up." Her tone left no room for argument. At 7:15 a.m., Isabel stood outside the penthouse suite door, steadying her breathing, rebuilding her armor. She could do this. Deliver breakfast, confirm dinner reservations, leave. 3 minutes maximum. She knocked. Vanessa answered, wearing a hotel robe and looking annoyed at being awake. Oh, food. Great. Just leave it, I'll sign whatever. Isabel rolled the cart inside professionally, not looking around, not letting herself remember what it felt like to wake up in luxury beside the man she loved instead of serving breakfast to his replacement. But she felt him before she saw him. Dominic stood by the windows, dressed in slacks and a half-buttoned shirt, his hair still damp from the shower. He was looking directly at her, and the expression on his face was so raw it hurt to witness. "Your breakfast, as requested," Isabel said, her voice steady even though her hands wanted to shake. "The pastries are fresh from our bakery, and the coffee is from our reserve blend. Is there anything else you need?" "Belle," Dominic started. "It's Isabel," she corrected again, sharper this time. Vanessa looked between them, frowning. "Wait, do you two know each other?" The question hung in the air like a grenade with the pin pulled. "We've met," Dominic said carefully. "Briefly," Isabel added. "Years ago. If there's nothing else." "Actually, yes." Vanessa moved to the cart, surveying the breakfast spread with critical eyes. "This yogurt, is it full fat?" "I specifically requested non-fat. I have a wedding dress to fit into." Isabel checked the label, knowing before she looked that it was exactly what had been requested. "It's non-fat Greek yogurt, ma'am. 2% is our standard, but we received your dietary preferences and adjusted accordingly." Vanessa took a pastry instead, breaking off a piece and eating it without interest. "Dom, what time is our couple's massage?" 11, he said, still looking at Isabel. "Perfect. I need to look amazing tonight. Everyone's going to be watching us at Celestial." She turned to Isabel with casual condescension. "You know how it is. Or maybe you don't. That restaurant has a 6-month waiting list, but when you're engaged to Dominic Caruso, doors just open." The words were designed to wound, and they succeeded. Isabel's professional smile never wavered. "How wonderful for you. Mr. Caruso, your dinner reservation is confirmed for 9 p.m. The sommelier has selected wines to complement the tasting menu. Will there be anything else?" "Say something," she thought desperately, looking at him. "Tell her who I was to you. Acknowledge what we were. Give me something." But Dominic just stood there, jaw clenched, a muscle jumping in his cheek, silent. And his silence said everything. "No," he finally managed. "Thank you." Isabel nodded once, professional to the end. "Enjoy your breakfast." She turned and walked out, closing the door behind her with a quiet click that felt like a coffin lid sealing shut. In the hallway, she pressed her palm against the wall and counted to 10, forcing down the scream building in her chest. "This is what moving on looks like," she told herself. "He's moved on. You moved on. This doesn't matter anymore." But her body didn't believe the lie. Her heart didn't believe it. And when she heard Dominic's raised voice through the door, "Don't talk to the staff like that, Vanessa," followed by Vanessa's sharp reply, "Oh my God, why do you care? She's just the help." Isabel walked away before she could hear his response, because she couldn't bear to know if he'd defend her, or if he'd stay silent again. The rest of the day was an exercise in avoidance that kept failing. Isabel saw them at the concierge desk, in the lobby bar, heading to the spa. Vanessa was always touching him, possessive hands on his arm, his back, his chest, marking territory. Dominic looked uncomfortable, distant, but he didn't pull away, and every glimpse was a fresh wound. At 3 p.m., Isabel was updating guest folios when Dominic appeared at her desk alone. She looked up, her professional mask snapping into place. "Mr. Caruso, how can I help you?" "Stop calling me that." His voice was low, urgent. "Belle, please." "It's the appropriate form of address for a guest," she said coolly. "Is there something you need?" "I need to talk to you." "I'm working." "Then when do you get off?" That's not appropriate, Mr. Caruso. Damn it, Belle! He stopped, running a hand through his hair in frustration. A gesture she remembered from 1,000 arguments. I can't just pretend you're nobody. That we're nothing. We are nothing, she said quietly and watched him flinch. You made sure of that when you let me walk away 5 years ago without fighting for me. And I made sure of it when I signed papers that said we were done. So please, let me do my job, enjoy your weekend with your fiancé, and we can both go back to pretending the other doesn't exist. Is that really what you want? The question was so earnest, so vulnerable that she almost broke. Almost told him the truth. That seeing him was killing her, that she still loved him, that every night for 5 years she'd wondered if she'd made a mistake. But Vanessa's laughter carried across the lobby, bright, young, uncomplicated, and Isabel remembered why she'd left. What I want doesn't matter, she said. You're engaged. I'm working. This conversation is over. She stood, gathered her tablet, and walked away from him for the second time in 5 years. Behind her, Dominic stood alone in the middle of the lobby, looking like a man who'd just lost everything all over again. The alert came at 8:47 p.m., just as Isabel was preparing to finally go home. Security Protocol Alpha. Credible threat. Lockdown floors 18 to 22. Her stomach dropped. The penthouse was on floor 22. Within minutes, the hotel's security team had implemented emergency procedures. A threat had been called in. Someone from Dominic's past. Someone who apparently hadn't gotten the memo that Dominic Caruso was legitimate now. The police were on their way, but protocol demanded that high-value guests be secured in protected areas until the threat was assessed. Belle, we need you on VIP management, her security chief said, already moving. Get Caruso and his fiancée to the executive lounge. It's secure and we can monitor from there. She wanted to refuse, wanted to claim illness, emergency, anything. But this was her job, and despite everything, she was still professional. On it, she said. The executive lounge was on the 20th floor, a private space reserved for platinum guests and emergencies, with reinforced doors, no windows, and communication equipment. Isabel arrived first, checking that everything was ready, her heart hammering against her ribs. She could do this. Stay professional. Keep them safe. Leave as soon as possible. Then the security team arrived with Vanessa, who was already hysterical. This is insane. I want to leave. Dom, tell them we're leaving. She was in her dinner dress, a tight red number that probably cost thousands, and her carefully applied makeup was smudging from tears. Ma'am, I need you to stay calm, the security officer said firmly. We're bringing Mr. Caruso now. The police are en route. You're completely safe here. Where is he? Why isn't he with me? Vanessa's voice climbed toward panic. He was in the hotel gym when the alert came, Isabel explained, keeping her voice soothing and professional. Security is escorting him now. Please have a seat. Can I get you some water? I don't want water. I want to know what's happening. Before Isabel could respond, the door opened and Dominic entered, flanked by 2 security officers. He was in workout clothes, athletic pants, and a compression shirt that showed exactly how he'd maintained his physique, and his face was hard, alert, dangerous in a way that reminded Isabel exactly who he'd been, who maybe he still was, underneath the legitimate businessman veneer. Vanessa, you okay? He asked, moving immediately to her. No, I'm not okay. Someone's threatening you? What the hell, Dom? I thought you said that life was over. It is over. This is just, he stopped, jaw tight. Someone being stupid. It'll be handled. Handled how? Oh my God, are we going to die? No one's going to die. His voice was steel. I promise you. One of the security officers turned to Isabel. We need to split them up. Protocol says separate secure locations for multiple VIPs in case this is a kidnapping scenario. Isabel's stomach sank. There's another secure room. The spa has a reinforced panic room. We'll take Miss, He glanced at his tablet. Miss Hayes there. Mr. Caruso stays here. What? No. Vanessa clutched Dominic's arm. I'm not going anywhere without him. Ma'am, it's for your safety. I'll be fine, Dominic said quietly, extracting himself from her grip. Go with them. I'll come get you as soon as this is cleared. Dom. Vanessa. Go. His tone left no room for argument. She went, shooting Isabel a suspicious glare as she left, as if somehow this was all her fault. And then the door closed, leaving Isabel and Dominic alone in a locked room with nowhere to run. The silence was deafening. Isabel busied herself checking her tablet, confirming security updates, doing anything to avoid looking at him. The police estimate 15 to 20 minutes. The threat was called in from a burner phone, but they're tracking the location. Hotel security is reviewing all CCTV footage. You're completely safe. I'm not worried about me, Dominic said. She made the mistake of looking up. He was watching her with an intensity that made her throat tight. Your fiancé is secure, she managed. The spa panic room is actually more fortified than this lounge. I wasn't talking about her either. The words landed between them like stones in still water, creating ripples neither could ignore. Isabel set down her tablet carefully. Mr. Caruso. My name is Dominic. Or Dom. Or, if you really want to hurt me, keep calling me Mr. Caruso like I'm a stranger. His voice was rough, frustrated. But don't stand there and pretend you don't know who I am. Who we were. Who we were, she emphasized. Past tense. 5 years past. Then why do you look at me like I'm killing you every time our eyes meet? The accusation was so direct, so honest, that her defenses cracked. That's not fair, she whispered. None of this is fair, Belle. He moved closer, and she could smell him. Soap and sweat and that particular scent that was just him, unchanged by time or distance. You think this is easy for me? Seeing you working here, wearing that uniform, calling me sir? You were my wife. You were my queen. And now you're... Nothing, she finished, her voice breaking. I'm nothing. That's what you mean, isn't it? How far I've fallen. No. He looked stricken. God, no. That's not. Belle, you could be working anywhere, doing anything, and you'd still be the most remarkable woman I've ever known. That's not what I meant. Then what did you mean? He stared at her, jaw working, emotions warring across his face. Finally, I meant seeing you is destroying me. Being near you and not being able to touch you, talk to you, explain it's killing me. You have a fiancé, she said, but her voice had no strength. I know. A woman who loves you. She loves the idea of me. The money, the status, the power. She doesn't know me, Belle. Not like you did. Don't. Isabel held up a hand, her eyes burning with unshed tears. Don't do this. Don't make this about what we had. You let me go, Dom. You let me walk away without a fight. Because you were right. His voice rose, raw with emotion. You were right about everything. I was turning into my father, violent, paranoid, destroying everything good in my life. You left to save yourself, and I let you go because I loved you too much to watch myself destroy you. The confession hung in the air between them, stark and painful. Isabel pressed her hands against the desk behind her for support. So you moved on, found someone new, started over. I tried. He laughed bitterly. God, I tried. She's safe, easy, uncomplicated. She doesn't ask hard questions or challenge me or make me want to be better. She just wants the life I can give her. And that's enough for you? I thought it was. He took another step closer, until I walked into this hotel and saw you, and every lie I've been telling myself for 5 years fell apart. Isabel's breath caught. Dom. Why are you here, Belle? Why this hotel, this city? Why didn't you go somewhere else? Start over completely. Because I couldn't leave, she thought. Because this city has you in it, and even broken we were, I couldn't bear to be somewhere you weren't. But she couldn't say that, couldn't give him that power. I rebuilt my life here, she said instead. Found purpose. Made something of myself without you. Without me, he repeated. Tell me something, Belle. In 5 years, is there someone else? The question was vulnerable, terrified. She could lie. Should lie. Let him think she'd moved on as completely as he apparently had. But she'd never been good at lying to him. No, she whispered. There's no one else. His eyes closed briefly, like the answer physically hurt him. Why not? Because no one else is you. The confession escaped before she could stop it, and the moment it was out, she wanted to take it back. But it was too late. The truth was there, naked and raw, and Dominic was looking at her like she'd just handed him salvation and damnation in the same breath. Belle. Don't. She straightened, rebuilding her walls desperately. Just don't. You're engaged. I'm happy for you. I am. You deserve to move on, to find someone who doesn't carry all our baggage. Someone who can give you the uncomplicated life you want. What if I don't want uncomplicated? He was close now, so close she could feel the heat of him. What if I want complicated and difficult and real? Then you shouldn't have proposed to someone else. The words were meant to wound, and they did. She watched him flinch, watched the pain cross his face. Her tablet buzzed. She grabbed it like a lifeline. Security's cleared the threat, she said, her voice shaking. False alarm. Some kid making prank calls. You're free to go. Dominic didn't move. Belle. Your fiancée is waiting, Mr. Caruso. I'm sure she's anxious to see you. She walked to the door, unlocked it with her security badge, and held it open. An invitation to leave, a barrier between them. Dominic stood there for a long moment, looking at her like he was memorizing her face. Then, slowly, he walked toward the door. He paused beside her, close enough that she could feel his breath. This isn't over, he said quietly. Yes, she whispered. It is. He left, and Isabel closed the door, locked it, and finally let herself break. Dominic didn't go back to the penthouse immediately. Instead, he found himself in the hotel bar at 10 p.m., nursing a whiskey he wasn't drinking, staring at nothing while his phone buzzed with increasingly frantic texts from Vanessa. Where are you? Dom, seriously, answer me. Our reservation is ruined. Thanks a lot. Are you with her? He should go upstairs. Apologize. Make an excuse. Play the role of devoted fiancé. But all he could think about was Isabel's face when she'd said, because no one else is you. 5 years. 5 years she'd been alone. 5 years without moving on, just like him. Except he'd been a coward and tried to fill the void with someone who could never compare. You look like a man with regrets. Dominic looked up. The bartender, older, weathered, the kind who'd seen everything, was refilling his glass without being asked. Too many to count, Dominic admitted. Woman trouble. Is it that obvious? The bartender smiled slightly. Always is. Let me guess, you let the right one go, and now you can't figure out how to get her back. Dominic's laugh was bitter. Something like that. Then what are you doing drinking alone in my bar? Go find her. Tell her the truth. It's not that simple. It never is, but it's usually simpler than we make it. Dominic left cash on the bar and stood. The bartender was right. He'd spent 5 years running from the truth. Maybe it was time to stop. He found Isabel in the last place he expected. The hotel's rooftop garden, closed to guests at this hour, but apparently not to staff with the right access codes. She was sitting on a bench surrounded by night-blooming jasmine, her uniform jacket discarded beside her, her hair finally down from its professional bun. She looked younger like this, vulnerable, exactly like the woman he'd fallen in love with at 21. How did you find me? She asked without turning around. I remembered. He moved closer slowly, like approaching something wild that might bolt. You always needed air when things got overwhelming. Heights, if you could get them. We used to sit on the fire escape, she said softly. At the old apartment. You'd smoke, I'd complain about the smell, and we'd watch the city until I could breathe again. I quit smoking 3 years ago. I know. I could smell it on you earlier. The cigarette on the terrace. So she'd noticed, filed it away, still paying attention to details about him even when she was pretending not to care. Dominic sat beside her, careful to leave space between them. I need to know why you really left, Belle. And don't give me the answer from the divorce papers. I need the truth. She was quiet for so long he thought she wouldn't answer. Then, do you remember the night Marco Benedetti came to our apartment? Ice flooded Dominic's veins. Belle. Do you remember? She pressed. Yes. The word was barely audible. Tell me what you remember. He closed his eyes, the memory rising like bile. He came to collect a debt. Said I disrespected him in front of his crew. I told him to leave. He refused. Things got heated. You beat him unconscious in our living room, Isabel said flatly, with your bare hands, while I watched from the bedroom doorway, too terrified to move. There was blood everywhere, Dom. On the walls, the floor, your hands. And when you finally stopped, when you finally looked at me, you weren't you anymore. You were someone I didn't recognize. Shame burned through him. He had a gun. I know. I saw it. And I know you were protecting us, protecting your territory, doing what your world demanded. Her voice cracked. But Dom, you didn't stop when he was down. You kept hitting him. And the look on your face, it was like you enjoyed it. Like you'd become the violence instead of just using it. Belle. That night, I cleaned blood off our floors while you showered. I scrubbed our carpet until my hands bled, trying to erase what I'd seen. And I realized I couldn't do it anymore. I couldn't watch the man I loved disappear into the monster his father had trained him to be. Tears were streaming down her face now, years of suppressed trauma finally breaking free. I tried to save you, she whispered. I begged you to leave that life, to walk away, go legitimate, start over somewhere else. But you said you couldn't, that it was who you were, that your family needed you, that you had obligations. You were my obligation, Dominic said hoarsely. You were the only thing that mattered. Then why didn't you choose me? The question was anguished, desperate. Why didn't you walk away when I asked? Because I was afraid. The confession exploded out of him. I was terrified that without the power, the protection, the reputation, I'd be nothing. That you'd see I was just a broken kid playing dress-up in his dead father's empire. That you'd leave anyway once you realized I wasn't strong enough to be what you needed. Isabel stared at him, stunned. So I lost you anyway, he continued, his voice breaking. I chose fear over love, and I lost the only real thing I ever had. And Belle, I have regretted it every single day since. Every morning I wake up and remember you're not there. Every night I go to bed alone and wish I'd been brave enough to choose you. You went legitimate anyway, she said softly, after I left. Why? Because you were right. About all of it. He turned to face her fully. After you left, I looked at myself, really looked, and I saw what you'd seen. A man destroying himself and everyone around him. So I got out, paid my debts, made my deals, walked away from that life. It took 2 years and cost me almost everything, but I did it. For yourself. For the ghost of you. For the hope that maybe, someday if I became the man you'd needed me to be, I could look at myself in the mirror without hating what I saw. Isabel's hand found his, tentative, trembling. Dom, I never hated you. I hated what you were becoming. But I never stopped loving who you were underneath. I know. That's what made losing you unbearable. He squeezed her hand gently. Belle, I need to tell you something. The night you left, after you walked out, I almost followed you. I packed a bag, called my underboss, told him I was done. I made it all the way to your sister's apartment in Brooklyn, where I knew you'd go. You came to Lisa's? Her eyes widened. I stood outside for an hour. Saw your silhouette in the window. You were crying and Lisa was holding you. And I realized you were finally free. Free of the violence, the fear, the constant danger of being Dominic Caruso's wife. And I couldn't take that from you. So I went home and signed the papers. Fresh tears spilled down Isabel's cheeks. You idiot. I cried for 6 months. I wanted you to fight for me, to prove I mattered more than your pride or your fear. Instead, you let me go. I thought I was loving you by letting you go. And I thought I was loving you by leaving. She laughed through her tears, the sound broken and beautiful. We're both fools. Yeah, he agreed softly. We are. They sat in silence, hands intertwined. Years of pain and misunderstanding finally laid bare between them. What happens now? Isabel finally asked. Dominic looked at her, truly looked at her, and saw his past, his regrets, and maybe impossibly his future. I don't know, he admitted. But Belle, I'm not leaving this hotel without telling you the complete truth. I never stopped loving you. Not for one single day. Dom, I know I'm engaged. I know I have no right to say this. But you deserve to know that Vanessa is a comfortable lie, I told myself, because I couldn't face the truth that I'd lost you forever. She's not you. She'll never be you. And I've been a coward for trying to pretend otherwise. Isabel closed her eyes, overwhelmed. I don't know what you want me to say. Nothing. I just needed you to know. He stood slowly, releasing her hand even though it hurt. I should go. Vanessa's, probably. I still love you too. The words stopped him cold. Isabel stood, facing him in the moonlight, her face streaked with tears and fierce with truth. I still love you, Dominic Caruso. And I hate that I do, because you're engaged and I'm trying to rebuild, and this is impossible and unfair, and... He kissed her. The kiss was everything, and nothing like Isabel remembered. Dominic's hands framed her face with a gentleness that contradicted his reputation, his thumb brushing away her tears as his lips moved against hers with desperate reverence. She tasted salt and whiskey and 5 years of longing, and for one perfect moment nothing else existed. Not Vanessa, not the past, not the impossibility of what they were doing. Just them. Finally, brutally, honestly them. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Dominic pressed his forehead to hers. I shouldn't have done that, he whispered. No, she agreed. You shouldn't have. I'm not sorry. Neither am I. They stood there, wrapped in each other, neither willing to let go first. The night air was cool, carrying the scent of jasmine and the distant sounds of the city below. Here, 20 stories above reality, they could pretend the world hadn't kept moving while they'd stood still. What are we doing, Dom? Isabel asked quietly. Something stupid. Something impossible. He pulled back just enough to look at her. Something that feels more right than anything has in 5 years. She wanted to argue, wanted to be the voice of reason, the one who pointed out all the ways this would end in disaster. But his hands were still on her face, and she was so tired of being strong, of being alone, of pretending she didn't want exactly this. You're engaged, she said, but the protest was weak. I know. To a woman who's probably losing her mind, wondering where you are. I know that too. This is wrong, Dom. We can't. I'm going to end it. The words came out firm, decided. With Vanessa. Tomorrow. Tonight. As soon as I go back upstairs. Isabel's breath caught. Don't do that because of one kiss. Don't blow up your life because we got caught up in. This isn't one kiss, Belle. This is 5 years of lying to myself, of trying to build something with someone who isn't you, of pretending I could be happy with comfortable when what we had was real. He stepped back, running his hands through his hair in frustration. I should have ended it the moment I saw you in that lobby. Hell, I should never have proposed to her in the first place. Then why did you? The question hung between them, vulnerable and necessary. Dominic sank back onto the bench, suddenly looking every one of his 52 years. Because I was lonely. Because everyone kept telling me I needed to move on, that it was time, that you'd probably found someone else. Because Vanessa made it easy. She didn't ask hard questions or expect me to be anything other than rich and powerful. He looked up at Isabel, because I convinced myself that comfortable was enough, that I didn't deserve the kind of love we had after I'd destroyed it. Isabel sat beside him, close but not touching. You didn't destroy it alone. I left without giving you a chance to change. I made an ultimatum and walked away when you couldn't immediately become someone different. You gave me dozens of chances, years of chances. I just didn't take them until it was too late. Maybe it wasn't too late, she said softly. You did change. You got out, went legitimate. You became the man I'd hoped you could be. 5 years too late. Better late than never. He laughed, the sound rough and surprised. Are you quoting greeting cards at me, Belle? I might be. A small smile tugged at her lips, the first genuine smile she'd felt since he walked into the hotel. I've had a lot of time to think in platitudes. Yeah. What other wisdom have you accumulated? She considered. That love doesn't die just because it's inconvenient. That some people mark you so deeply that everyone after them is just a shadow. That walking away from someone doesn't mean you stop carrying them with you. Heavy stuff. I've had 5 years to get philosophical about heartbreak. Dominic reached for her hand, lacing their fingers together like he'd done 1,000 times before. Tell me about those 5 years. What happened after you left? So she did. She told him about the studio apartment in Queens with the broken radiator, about working 3 jobs, waitressing, retail, night cleaning, until she'd saved enough for certification courses, about her sister Lisa letting her cry every Sunday over cheap wine and takeout, about the slow, painful process of rebuilding an identity that wasn't Dominic Caruso's wife. I had to figure out who Isabel Chin was, she said. Without the money, the status, the protection of your name. It was terrifying and liberating at the same time. I'm sorry, Dominic said quietly. I should have made sure you were taken care of. The divorce settlement. I didn't want your money. I wanted a clean break. She squeezed his hand. I needed to know I could survive on my own. That I wasn't just some mafia wife who'd fall apart without her husband's empire holding her up. You were never just anything, Belle. You were the strongest person I knew. I didn't feel strong. I felt shattered. She leaned her head on his shoulder, a gesture so familiar her body remembered it before her mind could object. But I put the pieces back together, different than before but whole. They sat in comfortable silence, her head on his shoulder, his thumb tracing circles on her hand. It was dangerously easy to fall back into old patterns, old intimacies, like their bodies remembered what their lives had forgotten. Dom. Isabel said eventually, Yeah. What was she like? Vanessa. Before tonight, before all this. What did you see in her? It was a masochistic question, but she needed to know. Needed to understand what had drawn him to someone so different from her. Dominic was quiet for a long moment. She was uncomplicated, young enough that she didn't have baggage, didn't ask about my past. She wanted the fairy tale, the rich, powerful man who'd give her a perfect life. And I wanted to be that for someone, to be the hero instead of the villain for once. Were you happy? I was comfortable, content maybe, but happy. He shook his head. No, because every time she laughed, I compared it to your laugh. Every time she touched me, I remembered how you used to. Every conversation we had felt shallow because she didn't know me, the real me, the broken parts, the ugly history. She only knew the version I presented. And that wasn't enough. How could it be? He turned to look at her. Belle, you knew me when I was nobody. when I was just Antonio Caruso's son, trying to survive my father's world. You saw me covered in blood and loved me anyway. You challenged me, fought with me, demanded I be better. Vanessa just wants me to be successful and take pretty pictures for Instagram. Isabel couldn't help the small laugh that escaped. That's not fair to her. Maybe not, but it's the truth. He cupped her face gently. She deserves someone who loves her for who she is, not someone using her as a placeholder for the woman he actually wants. And what do I deserve? The question was barely a whisper. Everything, Dominic said fiercely. You deserve everything, Belle. A man who fights for you, who chooses you every single day, who becomes worthy of the love you give. His voice softened. I don't know if I can be that man, but God, I want to try. Tears pricked her eyes again. I'm scared. Me too. What if we try again and it falls apart? What if the problems that broke us the first time are still there? Then we deal with them. Together this time, instead of me shutting you out and you walking away. He pressed a kiss to her forehead. I can't promise perfect, Belle, but I can promise honest. I can promise that I'll fight for us instead of running. That I'll choose you over fear. That's a big promise. I've had 5 years to figure out what I lost. I'm not losing it again. Isabel closed her eyes, letting herself imagine it. A second chance with Dominic. A rebuilt love on a stronger foundation. The possibility of healing old wounds instead of just nursing them. It was terrifying. It was everything she wanted. Okay, she whispered. Okay. She opened her eyes and looked at him. Okay. But Dom, you have to end it with Vanessa first. Cleanly, kindly. She doesn't deserve to be blindsided or humiliated. And you have to be sure, not caught up in nostalgia or guilt, but actually sure that we are what you want. I'm sure. Then prove it. She stood, creating space between them before she lost her nerve. Go back to your room. Think about this clearly, not just in the moment. And tomorrow, if you still want us, then we'll figure out how to move forward. Dominic stood too, his expression a mixture of understanding and frustration. You're really going to make me walk away right now. I'm making sure you're choosing me for the right reasons, not just because I'm here and familiar and we got emotional. She touched his face gently. I love you, Dominic. I probably never stopped. But I won't be the other woman, and I won't let you make a decision you'll regret in the morning. He caught her hand, pressing a kiss to her palm. I won't regret it. Then tomorrow will come soon enough. Have you ever had to choose between what's comfortable and what's real? Tell us in the comments what you'd do in Dom's situation. Dominic returned to the penthouse suite at 11:43 p.m., steeling himself for a conversation that was 5 years overdue. Vanessa was waiting, perched on the edge of the sofa in her silk robe, her face a storm of fury and tears that had long since ruined her makeup. 6 hours, she said, her voice dangerously quiet. You left me terrified in a spa panic room for 45 minutes, then disappeared for 6 hours. No texts, no calls, nothing. Vanessa, I'm sorry. Where were you? She stood, arms crossed. And don't you dare lie to me, Dom. I'm not stupid. You were with her, weren't you? That hotel manager. Your acquaintance. He could lie, should lie, maybe, until he figured out how to do this gently. But Isabel's words echoed in his mind. Cleanly, kindly, she doesn't deserve to be blindsided. Yes, he said simply. I was with her. The confirmation hit Vanessa like a slap. Her face crumpled, then hardened. I knew it. I knew from the moment I saw how you looked at her. How long has this been going on? It's not like that. Then what is it like, Dom? Explain to me how you disappear for hours with another woman the night before our big romantic dinner. She's my ex-wife. The words fell into the room like a grenade. Vanessa stared at him, her mouth opening and closing soundlessly. "You're what?" "Isabel, the guest relations manager. We were married for 12 years. Divorced 5 years ago." "You were married?" Vanessa's voice climbed toward hysteria. "You never told me you were married." It didn't seem relevant. Relevant. She threw a decorative pillow at him. "You proposed to me. We're getting married in 3 months. And you forgot to mention you had a whole entire wife." "Ex-wife," he corrected, then immediately regretted it as her face purpled with rage. "Oh, well, that makes it so much better. Thank you for clarifying." She paced frantically, her hands shaking. "What else haven't you told me, Dom? Any kids I should know about? Secret families? Other ex-wives working at hotels across the country?" "Vanessa, please calm down." "Don't tell me to calm down." Tears were streaming down her face now, genuine hurt breaking through the anger. "I have been planning our wedding. I picked out my dress. I sent save the dates. I told everyone I know that I was marrying Dominic Caruso, and you've been lying to me this entire time." "I didn't lie. I just didn't tell you everything." "That's the same thing." She grabbed her phone from the table, scrolling frantically. "Oh my God! Oh my God! I posted about this hotel, about our romantic weekend. Everyone's going to know. Everyone's going to see that I'm the idiot who didn't know her fiancé's ex-wife works here. No one knows." "I know." Her voice cracked. "I know, Dom. And that's enough." The fight drained out of her suddenly. She sank onto the sofa, looking young and lost, and nothing like the confident woman he'd proposed to 6 months ago. "Do you still love her?" Vanessa asked quietly. This was the moment. The choice between a comfortable lie and a devastating truth. Dominic thought of Isabel on that rooftop, the way she'd fit perfectly against him, like no time had passed at all. The way his heart had restarted when she'd said, "I still love you too." "Yes," he said. "I never stopped." Vanessa flinched like he'd struck her. "Then why did you propose to me?" "Because I thought I could move on. Thought I should move on. You were beautiful, uncomplicated, everything that she wasn't. Everything she wasn't." Vanessa's laugh was bitter. "You mean young and stupid and shallow enough not to ask questions about your past." "That's not what I meant." "Yes, it is." She stood, wrapping her robe tighter around herself like armor. "I'm the rebound, aren't I? The pretty young thing who made you feel powerful and desirable and like you weren't still pining over someone else." The accuracy of the assessment left him speechless. "I loved you," Vanessa continued, her voice breaking. "I actually loved you, Dom. Not your money or your status or whatever else you think. I loved that you were protective and strong and made me feel safe. I loved planning a future with you." "Vanessa!" "But you never loved me back, did you?" Tears were falling freely now. "You cared about me, sure. Liked me well enough. But love? Real, devastating, can't live without you love? That belonged to her. It always did." He wanted to deny it. Wanted to tell her she was wrong, that what they had was real. But Isabel had taught him something 5 years ago. Sometimes honesty was the only kindness you could offer. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "You deserved better than this. Better than me." "Yeah," she agreed. "I really did." She walked to the bedroom, and he heard drawers opening, the sound of frantic packing. When she emerged 15 minutes later, she was dressed in jeans and a sweater, her designer luggage trailing behind her. "I'm going to my sister's in Connecticut," she said, her voice eerily calm. "I'll send someone for the rest of my things next week. You can keep the ring. Probably cost less than her salary anyway." The dig was meant to wound, and it did. She paused at the door, turning back to him with eyes that were dry now, all cried out. "I hope she's worth it," Vanessa said. "I hope she's worth destroying what we had, humiliating me, wasting 6 months of my life. I hope she's worth all of it, Dom. Because if she's not, you're going to spend the rest of your life regretting this." She is, he said simply. She always was. Vanessa nodded once, like his confirmation was both expected and devastating. Then I guess there's nothing left to say. She left, the door closing behind her with a quiet click that sounded like finality. Dominic stood alone in the too large suite, surrounded by the remnants of a relationship built on comfortable lies, and felt the weight of what he'd just done settle over him. He should feel guilty, should feel something other than relief. But all he felt was free. Isabel was in her tiny apartment in Hell's Kitchen, trying and failing to sleep, when her phone buzzed at 1:17 a.m. Dominic, it's done. I told her everything. She left. Her heart stopped, then started again too fast. She stared at the message, her hands trembling. Isabel, are you okay? Dominic, no. Yes. I don't know. Can I see you? Isabel, Dom, it's 1 a.m. You just ended your engagement. Maybe you should process that before. Dominic, I've processed it for 5 years. Please, Belle. I need to see you. She should say no. Should let him sit with his decision. Make sure it wasn't just impulsive emotion talking. Should protect herself from the possibility that he'd wake up tomorrow and regret everything. But she'd spent 5 years saying no, walking away, protecting herself. And where had it gotten her? Alone in a studio apartment, still in love with a man she'd convinced herself she couldn't have. Isabel, rooftop garden. 20 minutes. She got there first, wrapped in a cardigan against a night chill, her heart hammering in her chest. This was real now. Not just stolen moments and confessions in the dark, but actual, tangible possibility. It was terrifying. When Dominic appeared, he looked wrecked, hair disheveled, tie gone, shirt partially unbuttoned. But his eyes were clear, determined. You came, he said. You called. She managed a shaky smile. Old habits. He crossed to her in 3 strides, cupping her face in his hands. Belle, before we do this, before we try again, I need you to know something. I ended things with Vanessa, and I don't regret it. Not for 1 second. But I need to know you're sure that this isn't just nostalgia or loneliness or... She kissed him, cutting off his words with lips and certainty and 5 years of suppressed longing. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, she looked him dead in the eye. I'm sure, she said. Terrified, but sure. Yeah. She smiled through threatening tears. Let's try again, Dom. Let's do it right this time. He pulled her close, wrapping her in his arms like he'd never let go again. And for the first time in 5 years, Isabel let herself believe that maybe, impossibly, they could have a second chance. That maybe broken things could be mended. That maybe love didn't have to end just because it got hard. They stood there, wrapped in each other and possibility, as the city glittered around them and the future stretched out, uncertain but finally theirs to build together. But they weren't alone on that rooftop. Down below, in the lobby, Vanessa stood with her phone raised, having returned to the hotel to retrieve something she'd forgotten. And she'd seen everything. The kiss, the embrace, the intimacy that spoke of years of history and love she'd never been able to compete with. Her face hardened as she lowered her phone. The video she'd just recorded already uploading to her Instagram with a caption designed to destroy. When your fiancé's business weekend includes his ex-wife. Thanks for the memories at Domenico Caruso. Hope she's worth your reputation. By morning, the video would have 50,000 views. By afternoon, the tabloids would have the story. And everything Dominic and Isabel had just reclaimed would be tested in ways neither of them could have predicted. The storm hit at 6:47 a.m. Isabel woke to her phone exploding with notifications, texts, calls, social media alerts cascading across her screen in an endless stream. Still half asleep, she grabbed it, squinting at the chaos. Then she saw the video. Her stomach dropped as she watched herself and Dominic on the rooftop garden, kissing in the moonlight, wrapped in each other like the world didn't exist. The angle was distant but clear enough. The caption was worse. When your fiancé's business weekend includes his ex-wife. Thanks for the memories at Domenico Caruso. Hope she's worth your reputation. 50,000 views, 2,000 comments, and climbing. Her hands shook as she scrolled through the comments, some sympathetic to Vanessa, others calling Isabel a homewrecker, still others dissecting Dominic's past with the gleeful cruelty of internet strangers who'd found fresh scandal. Isn't that the mob guy who went legit? Poor Vanessa. Imagine planning a wedding and finding out like this. Once a cheater, always a cheater. She dodged a bullet. Wait, his ex-wife works at the hotel? This is messy AF. Her work phone rang. Her manager. Isabel. His voice was clipped, professional, furious. My office. Now. 20 minutes later, Isabel sat across from Gerald Morrison, the hotel's general manager, while he played the video on his desktop with the volume muted. Explain, he said flatly. It's complicated. Uncomplicate it. Because right now I have a guest relations manager who engaged in a romantic relationship with a VIP guest, a currently engaged VIP guest, on hotel property while on duty. Do you understand how this looks? I wasn't on duty. It was after midnight. You were in uniform earlier. You used your security access to enter a restricted area. And now my hotel is being tagged in a viral scandal about infidelity and inappropriate staff conduct. He leaned back in his chair. The board is furious, Isabel. Our reputation is built on discretion, professionalism, and trust. This is the opposite of all three. Shame burned through her. Gerald, I can explain. Dominic and I were married for 12 years. I didn't know he'd be staying here, and when I saw him, you should have immediately recused yourself from his service and reported the conflict of interest to HR. That's protocol. Instead, you spent the weekend in close contact with him, culminating in... He gestured at the screen. Whatever this is. I did request reassignment, she said desperately. I sent you an email Saturday morning, but you didn't see it. Because it was the weekend, and you should have called me directly for something this serious. His expression softened slightly. Look, Isabel, you're an excellent employee. One of our best. But this is termination-level misconduct. The words hit like a physical blow. You're firing me? The board is demanding it. They want a statement by noon distancing the hotel from this incident and announcing that appropriate disciplinary action has been taken. He sighed heavily. I'm sorry. I really am. But I have no choice. Isabel sat frozen, the full weight of the situation crashing down on her. Her job, the career she'd rebuilt from nothing, the identity she'd reclaimed, the independence she'd fought for, gone. Because she'd loved the wrong man 5 years too long. Can I resign instead? She asked quietly. Keep it out of my employment record as termination? Gerald considered, then nodded. I can do that much. But Isabel, you need to leave today. Security will escort you to collect your things. Dominic's phone had been ringing non-stop since 7 a.m. His lawyer, his business partners, his mother, of all people, calling from her retirement home in Florida to demand explanations. The tabloids had picked up the story. Former mob boss caught in love triangle at luxury hotel. And every legitimate business relationship he'd spent 5 years building was suddenly questioning his judgment. He ignored all of it. Instead, he tried calling Isabel. 5 times. 10. 15. Every call went to voicemail. At 10 a.m., he went to the hotel's administrative offices, only to be stopped by security. I'm sorry, Mr. Caruso, but Ms. Chen is in a meeting and cannot be disturbed. Then I'll wait. Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to return to your room. I'm not going anywhere until I see her. The security guard's radio crackled. A terse conversation followed. Then, Mr. Caruso, Ms. Chen has asked me to tell you that she's handling a personal matter and will contact you when she's able. Translation. She didn't want to see him. Dominic's chest tightened. Can you at least tell her I'm here? That I need to talk to her. The guard's expression softened with something like pity. "She knows, sir." Isabel cleaned out her desk with a security escort hovering nearby, the walk of shame made literal. 3 years of work packed into a single cardboard box, a few personal photos, a coffee mug Lisa had given her, the Employee Excellence Award she'd won last year. It all looked pathetically small. Her co-workers avoided eye contact. A few offered sympathetic smiles. Most just watched with the morbid fascination of people witnessing a car crash. As she was escorted through the lobby, past the marble floors where she'd first seen Dominic again, past the concierge desk where she'd maintained her professionalism, past everything she'd built, she saw him. Dominic stood by the elevators, still in yesterday's shirt, looking like he hadn't slept. Their eyes met across the lobby. She saw him move toward her, saw the security guard step forward to intercept him, saw the moment he understood that she was leaving, that she'd lost her job, that loving him had cost her everything all over again. His face crumpled with guilt and anguish. She looked away and kept walking, out the revolving doors and into the bright morning sunlight that felt cruel in its indifference. The security escort stopped at the curb. "I'm sorry, Ms. Chin. For what it's worth, everyone knows you were excellent at your job." "Thank you," she managed, her voice hollow. She walked to the subway station on autopilot, descended into the familiar darkness of the tunnels, and finally let herself break. 5 years ago, she'd lost her marriage, her identity, her sense of self. She'd rebuilt everything from nothing, her career, her independence, her dignity. And in one weekend, Dominic Caruso had destroyed it all again. By noon, Isabel was back in her apartment, staring at the cardboard box and trying to figure out how to breathe through the panic. No job, no references. The hotel wouldn't blacklist her officially, but the scandal would follow her. No savings substantial enough to last more than a few months in New York rent. Her phone buzzed. Dominic again. "Dominic, Belle, please answer. I know about your job. I'm fixing this." "Dominic," I called the hotel. Offered to make a substantial donation if they'd reconsider. "Dominic," they refused. Said it would look like bribery. "I'm so sorry." "Dominic, please just talk to me. Tell me how to fix this." She stared at the messages, something cold and final settling in her chest. This was why she'd left 5 years ago. Because loving Dominic Caruso meant chaos, meant being collateral damage in his world, meant building something fragile and watching it shatter because his presence attracted destruction. He'd changed, yes. Gone legitimate, yes. But the past didn't disappear just because you wanted it to. His name carried weight, both power and consequence, and she'd forgotten that at her peril. Her fingers moved before she could overthink it. "Isabel, you can't fix this, Dom. You can't make this better with money or connections or promises. I lost my job because I loved you. Again, I'm back where I started 5 years ago because I couldn't walk away from you. Again. Dominic, Belle, please don't do this." "Isabel, do what?" "Tell the truth. We're a disaster together. We always have been. 5 years ago, it was your violence. Now it's your reputation. Either way, being with you costs me everything. Dominic, I'll make this right. I swear to you." "Isabel, how? Can you undo the video? Erase the scandal? Give me back my career and my dignity?" "You can't, Dom. Some things can't be fixed." "Dominic, so that's it? We're done? After everything we said last night, you're just walking away?" The question hurt because it was fair. She'd promised to try, had kissed him and meant it, had let herself believe they could have a second chance. But cold reality looked different than midnight romance. "Isabel, I don't know. I just need space to figure out if loving you is worth losing myself again." She turned off her phone before he could respond. Then Isabel Chin, who'd survived a divorce, rebuilt a career, and reclaimed her independence, curled up on her couch and cried for the future she'd let herself believe in for exactly 12 hours. Across town, Dominic sat in his now empty penthouse suite, reading Isabel's messages over and over, each word a knife to the chest. She was right. He'd destroyed her life. Again, he'd promised to be different, to fight for her, to choose her over fear. But he hadn't considered that his past would chase them, that loving him would come with consequences she hadn't agreed to bear. He'd been selfish. Again, the question was, what did he do now? Walk away and let her rebuild without him? Prove he'd learned to love her enough to let her go? Or fight for her anyway? Convince her they could weather this storm together, that love was worth the cost? For the first time in his life, Dominic Caruso didn't know which choice was the right one. He only knew that losing her again might actually kill him. 3 days passed in silence. Isabel spent them in a fog, applying for jobs she was overqualified for, avoiding social media, ignoring the 17 voicemails from Dominic that she couldn't bring herself to delete or listen to. Her sister Lisa came over with wine and takeout and a kind of fierce solidarity that only siblings could provide. "He's a disaster," Lisa said, not for the first time. "You're better off without him." "I know," Isabel agreed, the words automatic. But she didn't know. Not really. Because every night she lay awake remembering the way he'd looked at her on that rooftop, the rawness in his voice when he'd said, "I never stopped loving you," the feeling of finally being seen again by the one person who'd ever truly known her. Was that worth her career, her stability, her hard-won independence? She still didn't have an answer. On the 4th day, Lisa left for work, and Isabel sat at her kitchen table with her laptop, staring at job applications she had no energy to complete. Her phone buzzed, not Dominic this time, but an unknown number. Against her better judgment, she answered. "Ms. Chin, this is Patricia Okonkwo from Luminous Hospitality Group." Isabel's heart skipped. Luminous was one of the largest luxury hotel chains in the country. Exactly the kind of corporation that wouldn't touch her after the scandal. "Yes," she managed. "I'm calling regarding a position we'd like to discuss with you. Director of Guest Experience for our flagship property in Boston. It's a significant step up from your previous role with a compensation package I think you'll find very competitive." Isabel blinked, certain she'd misheard. "I'm sorry, I think there's been a mistake. My recent employment ended under complicated circumstances." "Yes, we're aware." Patricia's voice was warm, professional. "We've done our due diligence, Ms. Chin. Your employment record speaks for itself. 3 years of excellence, consistently outstanding guest satisfaction scores, and glowing recommendations from colleagues. One personal situation doesn't erase years of proven competence. But the video was taken without your knowledge or consent during non-working hours and involves your private life. We're interested in your professional capabilities, not your personal relationships." A pause. "Ms. Chin, the hospitality industry is small, and your reputation preceded this incident. Everyone I spoke to said the same thing. Isabel Chin is exceptional at her job. That's what matters to us." Tears pricked Isabel's eyes. I don't know what to say." "Say, you'll interview. We're flying candidates in next week. All expenses paid, of course." "Yes," Isabel said, her voice steadying. "Yes, I'd be honored." She hung up, staring at her phone in disbelief. A lifeline, a future that didn't involve starting over from nothing, a future that was 300 miles away from Dominic. She called him that night. He answered on the first ring, his voice rough with exhaustion. "Belle." "Hi." Her throat tightened. "I'm sorry I haven't called. I needed time to think." "I understand." A pause. "Are you okay?" "I got a job offer. In Boston. Director position, better pay, fresh start." The silence on the other end was deafening. That's amazing, Belle. You deserve it." His voice was genuine, but she heard the devastation underneath. "Dom." "No, I mean it. You're brilliant, and whoever hired you is lucky to have you." Another pause. "When do you leave?" "I haven't accepted yet." The interview is next week. But you're going to accept. It wasn't a question. He knew her too well. I don't know, she admitted. It's everything I should want: career advancement, distance from the scandal, a clean slate. But it's not here. It's not you. She heard his sharp intake of breath. Belle, if you're asking my permission to take the job. I'm not asking permission. I'm asking what you want. What we want, if there even is a we after everything. What I want. Dominic's laugh was broken. I want to fix this. I want to undo every consequence you've suffered because of me. I want to give you back your job and your dignity and everything my presence in your life cost you. You can't do that. I know. That's what's killing me. His voice dropped. Belle, I love you. I have loved you through 5 years and a divorce and another relationship that never stood a chance. I will love you if you move to Boston, if you never speak to me again, if you decide I'm too much risk for too little reward. Dom. But I need you to know something. These last 3 days have been hell because I've been trying to figure out the right thing to do, walk away and let you rebuild without me, or fight for us and risk costing you even more. And I realized I've been asking the wrong question. What's the right question? Not what's right, but what's true. She heard him take a shaky breath. And the truth is, I'm tired of making decisions based on fear. 5 years ago, I let you walk away because I was afraid I'd destroy you. Now I'm terrified of the same thing. But Belle, fear has cost us 5 years already. I don't want to lose another 5 because I'm too much of a coward to fight for what we have. Tears were streaming down Isabel's face. What are you saying? I'm saying I want to fight for us. I want to rebuild what we had on a foundation that's stronger, honest, real. I want to face whatever consequences come and deal with them together instead of running scared. His voice strengthened. But I also need you to choose this. Choose me. Not because you're caught up in nostalgia or feeling guilty, but because you genuinely believe we're worth the risk. I'm scared, she whispered. Me too. But Belle, I'd rather be scared with you than comfortable with anyone else. The words unlocked something in her chest, the final wall she'd been hiding behind, the last defense against vulnerability. I don't want Boston, she said quietly. I mean, I want the job, the opportunity, all of it. But I don't want it at the cost of losing you again. I don't want to spend another 5 years wondering what if. Yeah. She smiled through her tears. So here's what I'm thinking. I take the interview because I need to know I can stand on my own, that I'm not giving up opportunities out of fear or codependence. But I also come home to you. And we do this right this time. Therapy, honest conversations, actually dealing with our problems instead of running from them. I'll do whatever it takes, Dominic said immediately. Therapy, counseling, communication workshops, whatever you need. What I need is a partner who chooses me every day, who fights with me, not against me, who doesn't let fear make our decisions. I can do that. I want to do that. Then let's try again, Dom. For real this time. 2 weeks later, Isabel stood in the lobby of a luxury hotel in Boston, finishing her final interview. She'd nailed it. She knew she had. The position was hers if she wanted it. But as she walked out into the autumn sunshine, she pulled out her phone and made a different call. Patricia, this is Isabel Chin. Thank you so much for this opportunity, but I need to decline. I've decided to stay in New York. Yes, I'm sure. But if any positions open up in your Manhattan properties, I hope you'll keep me in mind. She hung up and found Dominic waiting across the street, just as they'd planned. He'd driven up to Boston with her, given her space during the interview, and promised to support whatever decision she made. Well, he asked as she approached. I turned it down. His eyes widened. Belle. I turned it down because I got a better offer this morning. Boutique hotel in Tribeca, guest experience director. They specifically wanted someone with my background who could handle high-profile clientele with discretion. She grinned. Apparently, my complicated circumstances proved I could manage sensitive situations. Dominic laughed, the sound pure relief and joy. That's amazing. It is. And Dom? I'm not taking it because of you. I'm taking it because it's the right opportunity in the city I love, building the career I want. She took his hand, but I'm also really glad you're here to celebrate with me. He pulled her close, pressing a kiss to her forehead. I'm proud of you. So damn proud. Good. Because you're about to be even prouder. I signed us up for couples therapy. First session is Tuesday. He groaned playfully. Already. We're doing this right, remember? Right. He smiled, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear in that familiar gesture that still made her heart skip. Want to grab lunch? There's a place near here that supposedly has the best lobster rolls in Boston. Only if you promise not to compare them to New York food the entire time. No promises. They walked down the street hand in hand, two broken people who'd found their way back to each other, not because love was easy, but because it was real. And for the first time in 5 years, the future felt less like a question mark and more like a promise. 6 months later, Isabel adjusted her name tag, Isabel Chin, Director of Guest Experience, and surveyed the lobby of the Greenwich, the boutique hotel that had taken a chance on her. 6 months in, and she transformed their guest satisfaction scores, implemented new training protocols, and earned the respect of everyone from housekeeping to the executive team. She'd rebuilt her career on her own terms, proved she could thrive independently, and done it without compromising who she was. The hotel doors opened, and Dominic walked in, carrying takeout from her favorite Thai place. He'd made this a ritual, lunch together twice a week when both their schedules allowed, a tangible commitment to prioritizing their relationship. Miss Chen, he said formally, that familiar playful glint in his eye. I'm here to see the director. Mr. Caruso. She matched his tone, professional but warm. I believe I have a 1 o'clock scheduled with you. You do, though I was hoping to convince you to take a longer lunch today. Oh, what did you have in mind? He set down the takeout and pulled a small velvet box from his pocket. Isabel's breath caught. Before you panic, Dominic said quickly, this isn't a proposal. We agreed. 2 years of dating, therapy, actually being stable before any major commitments. Then what is it? He opened the box, revealing a delicate bracelet, not a ring, not a promise of marriage, but something gentler. A charm bracelet with a single charm, a tiny jasmine flower. It's a promise that I see you, he said quietly, that I remember who you are, what you've built, what matters to you, that I'm choosing you every day, not because you're convenient, but because you're you. Tears pricked her eyes as he fastened it around her wrist. It's perfect. Yeah. She kissed him softly. Now, let's eat before your pad thai gets cold. And Dom? Yeah. I'm choosing you too. Every single day. They sat in her office eating takeout and talking about their days, mundane, ordinary, beautifully real. No drama, no scandal, just two people rebuilding a love that had survived everything and emerged stronger. Outside, New York City hummed with its usual chaos, indifferent to their small miracle. But inside, two people who'd lost each other and found their way back were writing a new story, one built on honesty, growth, and the radical choice to love each other not despite their history, but because of everything it had taught them. What's the biggest risk you've ever taken for love? Share your story in the comments below. We'd love to hear how it turned out. Thank you for watching this story to the end. If you enjoyed this story, you will surely love the next one. It's as entertaining and even more intriguing as can ever imagine. So do check it out. Click on the image showing on your screen right now to watch the next one.